Hi guys, how are you today? This is Pallas Dame, and I am an integrative health practitioner. I'm also the CEO of Authority Establishment and founder of the Conscious Leadership Network. And today, talking about education and really education from my perspective, and that the true value of education doesn't necessarily come from school, from traditional academics, right? The value of our knowledge comes from the value of our experience over the course of our life, over what we bring in and then what we're able to pay forward out into the world. So for myself, I tend to go back to my own health journey because my health journey is why I am where I am now with what I do as a practitioner, with what I do with AE. And what I do now and what I know, it all stems from my own journey and what I had to learn in order to get through it, in order to get through the health journey. So for me, my health journey started 20 something years ago, and I wasn't even aware of it at that point. I just knew that things were starting not to feel right or in alignment. But it really took a turn for the worse about 13 and a half-ish years ago when my son was born. And during that time, I didn't know what happened to me. And so over the course of this last decade plus, what I've had to do was learn to become an advocate for myself so that I could get my voice out there to my practitioners, to be able to have dialogue about what's actually going on with me. But in the course of that, learning to establish my own authority, becoming my own advocate, I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. I was just moving forward in life, and I was struggling so much with trying to be heard and trying to get people to understand why I didn't feel well, what was not working for me, and being able to sit down and have the dialogue there, especially in traditional medicine, right? You guys, you go into the doctor's office and they have their clock is ticking. You have, T minus 10 seconds to get it all out to the world about what's going on with you, for them to come back and regurgitate like, okay, well, here's what I think's going on with you, even though I haven't given you the time of day to really, educate me about you. And so in learning how to deal first with the traditional medicine side of things, and I'll add, traditional medicine has a great value. Absolutely. Traditional medicine is a critical part of everything we do. But when you have a really complex situation, the way the system's set up, they don't listen, right? And you have to be super forceful. You have to be able to almost like show up in their world as their equal before they'll listen to you, versus forcing their diagnoses of your symptoms, the symptomology of what they think they hear in that T minus 30 seconds of time spent with you, versus, commanding their ear and being able to speak to the purpose of why you're there, speak to the purpose of what they know and understand for their portion of medicine that they're, highly educated in. And so when it comes to education, the true value of education, my first real deep dive into education outside of academia, which I never really resonated with to begin with, for a whole host of reasons for my own self, was being educated on myself and educated on the nuances of relationship dynamics when they're super, super complex. And when the super complex part of it is you, right? And so over these past years, I had to deep dive, even when my brain wasn't even functioning. I had to deep dive into what I thought hypothetically could be going on with me from, at that point, a very traditional mindset about how things work in the body, a very biological, medical system kind of way. And getting through that and being able to kind of have first level conversation with the doctors that I was working with. But then as things progressed, then I realized that those doctors just couldn't hear me, or that they did hear me, but what they were hearing and they were mirroring back to me was that they didn't know what to do, because they weren't skilled in the nuances of what I was trying to explain, right? And that was when I branched over into the alternative medicine side of things. And I started speaking with practitioners of all different modalities, where the first conversations we have are about me, who I am, what I do, what I'm experiencing, what I think about, what my life is like, what I eat, and being able to create dialogue around myself. And then with the different types of practitioners I'm working with, as I start feeling better, really starting to pick up on the nuances of what they're looking at with me, how we're deep diving into these different areas of my mind, of my body, of my energies, of my blood, of my bones, of my organs. And for me, as my brain started waking up through my health journey, or as I call it, my journey back to health, I started picking up on more and more information until I finally kind of passed over the plateau of having to be purely the patient and being truly in the driver's seat of my trajectory moving forward, the driver's seat of being able to speak to myself, speak to the experiences that I'm having, and speak to the practitioners that I'm working with. We're starting to, I was up leveling to being able to have dialogue that we both get, right? We both understand. And the education, the true value of the education was coming from a place of having my body completely broken, like down to the most granular level of existence, right? And having to rebuild myself. And at the beginning, I didn't have any foundation or knowledge or even slightest knowing that I could have any active part of my healing, of coming back into the world. And so the education of myself and the rebuilding of who I am from the most granular level, the cellular level, up to the throat chakra, to the voice, to being able to express, like the value of expression out into the world, and being able to share with practitioners, be able to share with other people, other healers, the journey, and then being able to have things mirrored back to me that I'm on the right track, that what I'm talking about, I'm not crazy, right? That there's this super, super valuable information in breaking everything apart in my own world and building upon those pieces as I'm growing, as I'm healing, as I'm understanding, as I'm doing deeper dives into all of these areas that I didn't know existed, right? And so through my own journey, as I say jokingly, but it's also true, I'm a PhD of myself. We all should be a PhD of ourselves. I have come out on the other end of my journey back to health with invaluable, not just information, but applied practices and applied information and ways to actually work with people, because I have been in the trenches, versus going to school in traditional academia. You go and you study and you memorize and you do an autopsy, or you take tests, and you are an A student or an F student, and your GPA is this or whatever, and it shows theoretically, hypothetically, the value of your knowledge, of what you can do. That's not it. I mean, that's one way, but it's not the only way by any means, right? And so, when I look at myself and everything that I've done and everything that I've gone through and the information that I have synthesized into my body, like, it's not just in the brain where the information goes, it's all throughout the body. It's the heart, is the head brain, not the heart brain, it's the head brain and the heart brain and the gut brain, and the evolution, the processing of all of the information to be able to fully integrate it into who you are and how you show up in the world. And so for me, the true value of my education didn't come from academia. It came from the greatest experiment I've ever been witness to, been a participant of myself, and coming out of the other end and being able to speak clearly and fluently to traditional medicine, allopathic medicine, to non-traditional medicine, to my Chinese medicine practitioners, to the energy workers, to my craniosacral therapists, to the Reiki masters, to all of these different modalities of healing, and being able to then take this information and this knowledge and hand it back and be able to translate it to others. And in my translation, it's not me going, here's all the information you need to do to get better. It's like, let me give you my hand and help you, guide you through these places that you never thought that you would wind up in your life. Let's tease these things apart, because I've been there, because I know how to look at the patterns. I know how to listen to the body. I know how to speak the language, and put it together, and then be able to take that information and to the point of how much I can help you, and then even hand it off to another practitioner, whether that's a traditional medicine doctor, or whether that's an energy worker, or whatever kind of transformational practitioner that might be, right? So the true value of education for me didn't come from academia. It didn't come from college. It didn't come from any test that I've ever taken. It has come entirely from my own life experience and the immense value that I have had, that I've gained, I really should say, by going through everything that I did. But rather than having it all tear me apart and tear me down, I took the tools. I let the tools integrate into myself and into my life in a way that when I was ready and coming out the other end, I could then pay it forward out into the world and help others circumvent, navigate differently their own stories, and help others become an advocate for themselves. Because in the true value of the education I've had is the core knowledge is we've got to be an advocate for ourselves before we can show up in the world, as we're meant to be. No matter how lost we are in our health journey, no matter how lost we are in a dysfunctional relationship in our career, like, it comes down to advocacy. And so the education for me has been life education. It has been the deepest dives into consciousness, into myself, into the physicality, into the energetic sides of things, and coming out the other end going, wow, I have so much to share and so much to pay forward. And had I not gone through my life's journey and I've chosen to take the tools with me that I've been given and and add them into my own toolbox, integrate them into myself so that I can then naturally put them back out into the world. Education to me, there's no greater education than life experience. There's no greater education than life experience. It's not about facts and figures. It's not about history, although, we do need to know history to a point because we don't want history to repeat itself. But that's a whole nother topic with the human race, right? With the short-term selective memory. But education isn't about what you can memorize. It's not about your grades. It's not about the school that you go to. It's about what you live and breathe and acquire and integrate into yourself, into who you are as a being, and then how you take that information, how you take this integration and then put it out into the world, share it with the world, serve the world. That's what it's about. It's about life. And nobody can rate you on life, because even the worst life experiences, if you look hard enough, or if you sit back and let it come to you naturally, the worst experiences give you the greatest toolbox that you would never have otherwise acquired. But what you choose to do with that toolbox, with that education, that life education, is up to you. It takes a strong person to make the choice to pay it forward and to move forward, right? Versus to be stuck in that place. But we're all given tools. We're all given these incredible tools throughout life to fill our own toolboxes. But we have to choose to see the tools. We have to choose to recognize them. And then what are we going to do with them once we have them? Okay, guys, those are my thoughts on the true value of education. And I would love to see you guys over in the Conscious Leadership Network. We have a really fantastic community, thriving community that we're growing in there. We have courses and tribes. You can connect with me and my tribe, Quantum Medicine and Integrative Health, and we can just pick up these conversations and keep them going. It's all about thinking and learning and growing and transforming and becoming better and changing the world and helping each other. It's a really profound community. So looking forward to seeing you guys in there, and thank you so much for your time that you spent with me today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.